I stood in the driveway watching my parents drive away, heading to take my sister Amber to an emergency shopping trip for some sorority dress. The restaurant reservation for my 21st birthday dinner would go unused. Inside, the cake I baked myself sat on the counter with 21 unlit candles. My mother Carol had said it that morning. "We'll celebrate tomorrow, Kendrick. This is important for your sister's future." But I knew there wouldn't be a tomorrow celebration. There never was. This was the moment I decided everything would change. I walked back inside the empty house and stood in the kitchen, staring at that cake. 3 hours had passed since they left. 3 hours since Amber threw her tantrum because she needed a specific designer dress for some event that probably didn't matter half as much as she claimed it did. 3 hours since my parents chose her drama over my milestone birthday. The silence felt heavy. I had spent the entire morning preparing for this day. I deep-cleaned the whole house, vacuumed every room, scrubbed the bathrooms until they gleamed. I went to the grocery store and bought ingredients for the family dinner I had planned to cook. Salmon, asparagus, baby potatoes, all the things my father Frank liked. I even wrapped the gift my parents would give Amber next week for some achievement I couldn't even remember anymore. I bought it with my own money, like I always did, like I had been doing for years. I looked at my phone. One text message. From my best friend Jake. "Happy birthday, man. 21. Let me know when you're free to celebrate properly." That was it. Nothing from my parents. Nothing from Amber. Radio silence from the people who were supposed to matter most. I found the lighter in the kitchen drawer, the one we used for the grill. I lit all 21 candles myself, watching the little flames flicker in the quiet kitchen. I closed my eyes and made a wish. I wished for the courage to do what I needed to do. Then I blew them out, alone, and took a photo with my phone. Just me and the cake in an empty kitchen. Something about that image felt like it summed up my entire life. I cut myself a slice and ate it standing at the counter. It was good. I had gotten better at baking over the years, mainly because nobody else in this family would bother. After I finished, I boxed up the rest of the cake and put it in the refrigerator. Maybe they would eat it later. Maybe they would forget about it entirely, and it would sit there until it went bad. Either way, I was done caring. As I cleaned up, my mind drifted back through the years, and I realized this pattern had been going on forever. My high school graduation. I had worked hard, finished in the top 10% of my class, got accepted to 3 good colleges, but the ceremony got cut short because we had to rush out. Why? Because Amber had a dance recital across town. A recital for a dance class. She quit 2 weeks later because she decided it was boring. My parents missed my diploma handoff, missed the photos, missed everything that mattered. But we made it to Amber's recital with 5 minutes to spare. My college acceptance letters came in the mail on the same day Amber made the cheerleading squad her freshman year of high school. I was going to be the first person in our family to attend a 4-year university on an academic scholarship. My parents glanced at the letters, said congratulations, then spent the entire dinner talking about Amber's cheerleading uniform and what a big deal it was that she made the squad. My first promotion at work came when I was 19, just a year into my job as a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. I was proud. It came with a raise and more responsibility. I asked my parents if we could go out to dinner to celebrate. They said yes. But that afternoon, Amber called crying because she broke up with her boyfriend. Dinner got canceled. My mother spent 3 hours on the phone with Amber. My father ordered pizza. Nobody mentioned my promotion again. Every achievement I ever had got minimized or erased. Every moment that should have been mine got stolen and handed to Amber. And I had learned to accept it, to be quiet, to not make waves, to just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention came my way. But it went deeper than just attention. I had become the family's invisible support system. I paid 1/3 of the household bills every month from my salary. $600, sometimes more, went straight from my account to theirs. I did the grocery shopping every week, because nobody else wanted to deal with it. I did repairs around the house, fixed leaky faucets, replaced light fixtures, patched drywall. I maintained both cars, changed the oil, rotated the tires, kept them running. I mowed the lawn every Saturday morning. I handled my father's medical appointments, reminded him to take his diabetes medication, managed his blood pressure checks, dealt with the insurance claims when he had procedures done. My parents both worked, but they lived beyond their means. My mother, Carol, worked part-time at a boutique in the shopping district, pulling in maybe 20 hours a week. My father, Frank, had been a middle manager at a manufacturing plant for almost 20 years. They made decent money, but they spent more than they earned. They leased 2 luxury cars they couldn't afford because they wanted to maintain appearances. We lived in a 4-bedroom house in one of the nicer neighborhoods in town, and the mortgage ate up most of their income. Everything was about looking successful, about keeping up with the other families, about making sure Amber could compete socially with her friends. And I was the one holding it all together. I was the safety net nobody acknowledged. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account and looked at my savings. $32,417. I had been saving aggressively for 2 years, putting away every extra dollar I could. I told myself it was for my future, for graduate school maybe, or a down payment on a house someday. But as I sat there looking at that number, I realized I had been preparing for this moment for the last 6 months without even knowing it. Some part of me had been planning an escape. I opened a new browser tab and started searching for apartments. 1-bedroom places across town, far enough away that I wouldn't accidentally run into my family at the grocery store or the gas station. Places I could afford on my salary alone, without needing to subsidize anyone else's life. Places where I could finally breathe. By the time my parents and Amber came home that night at 11, laughing and carrying shopping bags full of things Amber didn't need, I had already toured 3 apartments virtually and had an application ready to submit. They walked past me in the kitchen like I was furniture. Amber went straight upstairs to try on her new dress. Carol looked at me and said, "Oh, honey, we'll do something nice this weekend, I promise." It was the same promise she always made and never kept. Frank asked if I had picked up his prescription refill from the pharmacy. I had forgotten, too busy trying to salvage my own birthday. I lied and said yes. I would get it tomorrow. They went to bed without mentioning my birthday again. And I sat at that kitchen table until 2 in the morning, filling out apartment applications and planning my exit strategy. This was it. I was done. Over the next 5 days, I moved through the house like a ghost, and nobody noticed. That was the most telling part. I could have been carrying boxes out the front door in broad daylight, and they probably wouldn't have seen me. I found an apartment on the 2nd day of searching. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 900 square feet on the 3rd floor of a building, 23 miles away. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly young professionals and grad students. The rent was $1,200 a month. Utilities included except electric. I could afford it easily, especially now that I wouldn't be paying my parents' bills anymore. I signed the lease electronically and sent the first month's rent and security deposit. Move-in date was set for the following Saturday. Then I started the careful work of extraction. I took inventory of everything in my room and realized most of it was actually mine. The furniture I had bought myself over the years, the laptop I saved up for, the clothes, the books, the personal items. The only things that technically belonged to the family were some old childhood toys in the closet that I didn't want anyway. I developed a system. Every morning before work, I would load a box or 2 into my car trunk. Small things first. Clothes, books, toiletries. Things they wouldn't notice missing. I would drop them off at the new apartment on my lunch break or after work. The building had a package room where I could store things until I officially moved in. My parents didn't notice because they never paid attention to what I was doing. They never came into my room. They never asked about my day or what I was up to. I could have been building a spaceship in there, and they wouldn't have known. Amber certainly didn't notice. She never entered my room on principle. When we were kids, she told me my room was boring, and she had better things to do. That attitude never changed. By Friday, 5 days after my birthday, I had moved about 70% of my belongings. The apartment was starting to look lived in, even though I had only spent a few hours there total. On Friday night, I packed the rest of the small items. My grandfather's watch, the only family heirloom that had been given to me. Some photo albums from my childhood, back when my parents still took pictures of me. My important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, my external hard drive, with all my files backed up. Saturday morning came. My family had plans. Amber had brunch with her sorority sisters at some trendy place downtown. My parents were going to the home improvement store to look at new patio furniture they definitely couldn't afford. The house would be empty from 10 until at least 2 in the afternoon. Perfect. I waited until I heard all 3 cars pull out of the driveway. Then, I moved fast. The furniture was the hardest part. I had already rented a small truck the night before, parked it 2 streets over so they wouldn't see it. I drove it back to the house and started loading. My bed frame disassembled easily. The dresser was heavy but manageable. The desk, the bookshelf, the nightstand. Everything fit. I made 3 trips total. By 1 in the afternoon, my room was empty except for the carpet and the built-in closet. I vacuumed one last time, making sure there was no evidence of my presence. Then I walked through the house one final time. In the kitchen, I left my house key on the counter. Just the key, nothing else. No note, no explanation. They didn't deserve one. If they wanted to know why I left, they could think back to every moment they chose Amber over me, every time they took me for granted, every birthday and achievement they ignored. But I did do one more thing before I left. I went to the computer in the den and logged into all the household accounts that I managed. The internet bill was in my name. I canceled the autopay and scheduled the service to disconnect in 3 days. The streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, all on my accounts. I logged out and changed the passwords. The lawn service I had been paying directly from my account every month. I called them and canceled, effective immediately. Then I went into my banking app and removed my name from the automatic bill payments I had set up for the household utilities. The electric bill, the water bill, the trash service. All of them had been coming out of my account automatically, and I just turned it all off. I also canceled the subscription to my father's medical alert system, the one that monitored his blood sugar and blood pressure remotely. It was $60 a month, and I had been paying it for 2 years. I didn't block their phone numbers. I wanted to see how long it took them to notice I was gone. I just turned off all notifications from their contacts. Their calls and texts would still come through, but my phone wouldn't buzz or ring. I would see them when I decided to check, on my own time. By 2 in the afternoon, I was driving away from that house for the last time. The truck was returned. My car was packed with the final odds and ends, and I was heading to my new apartment to start my new life. As I turned onto the main road, I passed my parents' car coming back from their shopping trip. They were 2 cars ahead of me at the red light. My father was driving. I could see my mother in the passenger seat, gesturing animatedly about something. They didn't even glance at my car. Didn't recognize it as mine. Didn't notice I was right there. They just drove past, heading home to a house where I no longer lived, and they had no idea. I smiled for the first time in days. They were about to discover that their perfect life was built on a foundation I had been holding up, and I had just walked away from that job. 3 days passed in blissful silence. I spent Monday setting up my apartment properly, arranging furniture, unpacking boxes, making the space feel like mine. I went to work Tuesday and Wednesday like normal, except now I was coming home to a place that felt peaceful. No demands, no chaos, no Amber's drama echoing through the walls. Just quiet. I had changed my direct deposit at work the previous week. Instead of my paycheck going into my account with automatic transfers set up to the family household account, everything now stayed with me. That meant my parents were about to be $600 short this month, and they didn't know it yet. Wednesday evening, I finally checked my phone. 17 missed calls from my mother. 12 from my father. 8 from Amber. I scrolled through the voicemails, watching the progression in real time. The first one, from my mother on Monday afternoon. Kendrick, where are you? You weren't home this morning. Call me back. The second one, Monday evening. Kendrick, this isn't funny. Where did you go? Your room is empty. What's going on? The third one, Tuesday morning, my father this time. Son, your mother is worried sick. Please call us and let us know you're okay. Then they started getting annoyed. My mother again, Tuesday afternoon. Kendrick James Thompson, you need to call me right now. The internet isn't working, and we need you to fix it. Amber, Tuesday evening. Are you serious right now? Where are you? I need a ride to campus tomorrow morning, and nobody else can take me. More from my mother, Wednesday morning. This is incredibly selfish. We don't know where you are, we don't know if you're safe, and you can't even bother to return a phone call? This is not how family treats each other. My father, Wednesday afternoon. Kendrick, I don't understand what happened. Please come home, so we can talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. I listened to all of them without feeling much of anything. Maybe a little satisfaction, but mostly just exhaustion at how predictable they were. Even in crisis, it was all about what I could do for them. Fix the internet. Give rides. Come home. And make their lives easier. I sent one text message to the family group chat. I've moved out. I'm safe. I need space. Don't contact me for a while. My phone exploded immediately. The group chat lit up with messages. Amber. Are you serious right now? Who's going to take me to my volunteer event on Saturday? My mother. Kendrick James Thompson. You call me right now. This is not how family treats each other. You don't just leave without telling anyone. My father. Son, I don't understand. What happened? Come home and let's talk about this face to face. Amber again. This is so typical. You're always so dramatic. Just come home and stop being ridiculous. I muted the group chat and put my phone face down on the coffee table. Let them spiral. Let them figure out how to function without me. It wasn't my problem anymore. That weekend, they escalated. On Saturday morning, they showed up at my office building downtown. I wasn't there, of course. I had started working remotely 2 days a week, and Saturday was one of my remote days. But they didn't know that. My colleague Derek called me laughing, saying a man and woman claiming to be my parents were in the lobby demanding to see me. I told Derek to tell them I wasn't available, and to please not give them any information about my schedule. They tried my friend Jake next. Jake had been my best friend since middle school. He knew the whole story, knew exactly why I left. When my parents showed up at his apartment Sunday afternoon, he told them I was fine, and that was all he was willing to say. He called me afterward and said my mother looked genuinely distressed, but my father mostly just seemed confused. Amber stayed in the car, apparently too embarrassed to come to the door. On Sunday evening, my mother made a Facebook post. She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious. Sometimes you raise your children with love and sacrifice, giving them everything you have, and they repay you with coldness and abandonment. Praying for wisdom in dealing with ungrateful hearts. Within an hour, People from church were commenting, asking if everything was okay, offering prayers and support. Some of her friends were messaging her privately. The perfect family image was starting to crack, and Carol didn't like it. But the real crisis came on Monday morning. My father had a health scare. His blood sugar spiked dangerously high because he had missed his medication refill. Without me there to remind him, to manage his prescriptions, to make sure he was taking everything on schedule, he had just forgotten. He woke up Monday morning feeling dizzy and disoriented. My mother found him sitting on the edge of the bed, sweating and confused. She called 911. They took him to the emergency room. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was scary. They got his blood sugar stabilized, gave him IV fluids, monitored him for 4 hours. The ER doctor lectured him about medication compliance and asked who was managing his diabetes care at home. The hospital called me because I was still listed as his emergency contact. I was at work when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered and heard it was the hospital, my stomach dropped. For a second, just a second, I felt the old familiar panic. The need to drop everything and rush to fix things. But then the nurse explained what happened. Missed medication, blood sugar spike, preventable if he had been taking care of himself. And I felt that panic turn into something else. Clarity. I called the hospital back after I hung up. I spoke to the patient services coordinator and asked them to update the emergency contact information. I gave them my mother's cell phone number as the primary contact. I explained that I was no longer living with Frank and was not involved in his day-to-day care. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't call my parents to check in. I sent one text to my father's phone. Glad you're okay. Please take care of yourself. That was it. My mother called me 8 times that afternoon. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that progressed from worried to angry to desperate. The last one, she was crying. Your father was in the hospital, and you couldn't even be bothered to show up. What has happened to you? When did you become so heartless? But here's what she didn't say. She didn't say sorry for missing my birthday. She didn't say sorry for 21 years of putting Amber first. She didn't acknowledge anything I had done for them. It was all about what I wasn't doing now. That evening, they got the hospital bill in their online insurance portal. $3,200. Their insurance had a high deductible, and they hadn't met it yet this year. They realized, probably for the first time, that I had been paying their medical copays and expenses for the last 2 years. Every time my father had a doctor's appointment or needed a prescription, I had been covering the out-of-pocket costs because they were always short on money. My mother sent me one more text that night. We can't afford this hospital bill. Please. I didn't respond. They would figure it out. They had jobs. They had income. They just had to actually live within their means for once. 2 weeks passed. I stopped checking the family group chat entirely. I focused on my job, on settling into my apartment, on building a life that felt like mine. Jake came over one evening with pizza and beer, and we talked about everything. He told me I looked different. Lighter somehow. Less tired. I realized he was right. I had been carrying weight for so long that I didn't even notice it until I set it down. But while I was finding peace, my family's world was falling apart. I didn't know the details at first, but eventually Jake heard things through mutual friends and filled me in. Apparently, the implosion was spectacular. The household was in complete chaos. My mother discovered they were $600 short on monthly bills, which meant they couldn't cover everything. She had to make choices. Pay the electric bill or the water bill, the mortgage or the car payments. She had been living in a fantasy where money just appeared when they needed it, not realizing I had been the one making that magic happen. The house itself became a disaster. Nobody else cleaned regularly. Dishes piled up in the sink. Trash overflowed. The laundry room became a mountain of dirty clothes because nobody wanted to deal with it. My mother tried to get Amber to help, and Amber refused outright, saying she was too busy with school and sorority obligations. Arguments erupted over basic household tasks. The yard became overgrown. Within 2 weeks, the grass was 6 inches tall, and the hedges looked wild. The neighbors started complaining. The homeowners association sent a violation notice, 30 days, to bring the property into compliance or face fines of $50 per day. My father's car registration expired. He didn't realize it because I had always handled that. He got pulled over on his way to work and received a ticket for expired registration, plus another for expired insurance card. $380 in fines. Then they got the notice about their homeowner's insurance. It had lapsed. I had been paying that bill too, $540 every 6 months. They didn't even know when it was due. Without insurance, they were in violation of their mortgage terms. The bank sent a threatening letter. My mother tried to manage it all, but she had no idea how. She didn't know the login passwords for half the accounts. She didn't know when bills were due or who to call about what. I had been the invisible operations manager of the entire household, and without me, the system collapsed. Carol and Frank started fighting. Real fights, not just disagreements. She blamed him for not noticing how much I had been contributing. He blamed her for babying Amber and creating the situation that drove me away. They argued about money constantly, because suddenly they had to face the reality of their spending habits. But the worst part, the part that apparently shocked them both, was Amber. Without me there to buffer everything, to smooth things over, to do her homework and manage her schedule, Amber's life started unraveling too. She failed 2 midterm exams in her classes. It turned out I had been helping her with homework since high school. Helping was a generous term. I basically did it for her. She would come to me the night before something was due, panicking, and I would walk her through it step by step, which really meant I would do the work while she sat there pretending to learn. Without that safety net, she was failing. Her sorority called a meeting with her. She hadn't paid her dues. She thought I was paying them. I wasn't. I never had been. She had just never bothered to check her own finances. She owed $850 in back dues, and the sorority told her she had 2 weeks to pay or she would be removed from the chapter. At that same meeting, one of her sorority sisters made a comment. Something about that shopping trip on your brother's birthday. Another sister overheard and asked what she meant. The story came out. How Amber had demanded my parents take her shopping for a dress on my 21st birthday, causing them to cancel my dinner. How she didn't even wish me happy birthday. The other girls were horrified. Several of them had siblings. They couldn't imagine doing something like that. Amber tried to brush it off, saying I was being dramatic, and it wasn't a big deal. But the damage was done. Her social standing within the sorority took a hit. Girls who had been friendly started keeping their distance. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone that selfish. Amber became bitter. She came home angry every day, slamming doors and snapping at our parents. She blamed me for leaving, said I had abandoned the family, said I was selfish for not helping anymore. She couldn't see, or refused to see, that she was the architect of her own problems. My mother and father started seeing Amber differently. Without me there to absorb all the chaos, to run interference, to make everything work smoothly, they were face to face with what they had created. Amber was 19 years old. She had never worked a day in her life. She had no savings. She didn't know how to cook, clean, do laundry, or manage basic adult tasks. She was completely dependent and completely entitled. And then came the phone call that changed everything. A call from a lawyer. The family lawyer, actually, a man named Harold Peterson, who had helped my parents with my grandfather's estate 6 years ago when he passed away. Harold needed to speak with them urgently about a trust fund matter. They scheduled a meeting at his office. That's when they learned the truth. My grandfather, my father's father, had established a trust fund before he died. The trust was split 3 ways, a portion for Frank, a portion for me, and a portion for Amber. But there were conditions. For the children's portions, we had to demonstrate financial responsibility by age 21. The trust manager and lawyer would review our financial records, interview family members, and assess whether we were mature enough to handle a substantial sum of money. If we passed the review, we got our portion. $60,000 each. I had passed my review. On my 21st birthday, actually. Harold had sent me the paperwork weeks before. I had submitted everything, and the trust was released to me on the exact day I turned 21. The same day my parents canceled my party for Amber's shopping trip. I received $60,000. And I didn't tell anyone. I put $30,000 in savings, invested $20,000, and used $10,000 for my apartment setup and expenses. My parents sat in Harold's office, stunned. They had no idea. They didn't even know the review had happened. They weren't paying attention. Harold explained that Amber's review was coming up. She would turn 21 in 6 months. He needed to conduct the evaluation. That meant reviewing her financial records, interviewing family members, and assessing her character and responsibility. He asked them directly, "Based on what you know of Amber's financial habits and maturity level, do you believe she's ready to manage $60,000 responsibly?" My parents looked at each other. They couldn't lie. Not to a lawyer. Not in an official trust evaluation. Amber had no savings. She was in debt. She had never held a job. She failed to pay her own sorority dues. She had secret credit cards with thousands of dollars in charges. "We need to speak with Kendrick," my father finally said. He would have insights about his sister. Harold nodded. "I've already scheduled a call with him. He's part of the family evaluation process." My parents went pale. They realized I was going to be interviewed about Amber's character and financial responsibility. And they knew, absolutely knew, that I would tell the truth. I received the email from Harold Peterson on a Thursday afternoon. It was professional and straightforward. He explained that as part of Amber's trust evaluation, he needed to interview immediate family members. Would I be available for a phone call the following week? I replied, confirming my availability. I didn't tell my parents. Let them wonder what I would say. The following Saturday morning, they showed up at my apartment. I don't know how they got my address. Maybe they followed me from work one day. Maybe they hired someone to find me. Either way, there they were at 9 in the morning, knocking on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw all 3 of them standing there. My father looked tired, older somehow. My mother's face was tight with stress. Amber stood behind them, arms crossed, looking miserable. I considered not answering. But I was curious. I wanted to see what they would say, what they thought they could possibly offer that would change anything. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What do you want?" My mother's face crumpled immediately. "Kendrick, please. We need to talk. Can we come inside?" "No. Say what you need to say here." My father stepped forward. "Son, we know we made mistakes. We know we took you for granted. Your mother and I have been talking, and we realize how much you did for us, how much you sacrificed. We're sorry." It was the first time either of them had used that word. Sorry. I waited. My mother wiped her eyes. "We want you to come home. We'll make changes. Things will be different. We'll appreciate you more. We'll make sure you're valued and respected. I don't want to come home. I'm happy where I am." Amber shifted uncomfortably behind them. She hadn't said anything yet, and I could tell she didn't want to be there. My father tried a different approach. "Kendrick, I need to tell you something. I lost my job 3 weeks ago. The company did layoffs, and my position was eliminated. We're struggling financially. We might lose the house. Your mother and sister will suffer if that happens. We need your help." And there it was. The real reason they were here. Not because they actually cared about repairing our relationship. Because they needed something from me. "You have options," I said calmly. "Downsize. Get a cheaper place. Cut expenses. Live within your means. These are things normal people do. My mother's tears turned to anger. After everything we've done for you, we raised you, fed you, gave you a home. Doesn't that mean anything? It does. And I'm grateful. But I also paid thousands of dollars in bills. I did all the housework. I gave up my own life to support yours. I think we're even. We're family, my father said. His voice was breaking. Family doesn't abandon each other. You're right. Family doesn't. Family shows up for birthdays. Family values each person equally. Family doesn't cancel important celebrations for shopping trips. But that's not what we were. I was free labor. And Amber was the golden child who could do no wrong. Amber finally spoke. This is all your fault. You're so selfish. Everything was fine until you decided to throw a tantrum and leave. I looked at her directly for the first time. Really looked at her. She was 19 years old and she had never been held accountable for anything in her entire life. Amber, you're 19 years old. You've never worked a day in your life. You have no savings. You don't even do your own laundry. Mom and Dad enabled that. They created that. I'm not responsible for fixing it. You're just jealous, she spat. You always have been. Jealous that I'm more social, more successful, more loved. I almost laughed. Is that what you think? Amber, I'm not jealous. I'm free. I don't have to manage everyone's problems anymore. I don't have to be the invisible foundation holding up your fantasy life. I'm actually happy for the first time in years. My mother made one last attempt. Please, Kendrick, just come home. We'll figure everything out together. As a family, I am figuring things out. Just not with you. I started to close the door. But my mother pushed forward desperately. We know about the trust fund. We know Grandpa gave you money. And you never told us. I stopped. Opened the door wider. I received it on my 21st birthday. The day you canceled my party for Amber's dress shopping. The day you made it crystal clear where I ranked in this family. Why would I tell you? So you could ask me to pay more of your bills? So Amber could expect me to buy her things? The trust was Grandpa's gift to me, for my future. It's not family money. That's not fair, my father said weakly. Your grandfather would have wanted you to help your family. Grandpa wanted me to be financially responsible and independent. That's why the trust had conditions. That's why not everyone gets the money automatically. He wanted us to earn it. I paused, then dropped the bomb I had been holding. The lawyer called me, by the way. Harold Peterson. He's evaluating Amber for her trust review. He asked me about her financial responsibility and character. I told him the truth. Amber went completely pale. My mother gasped. My father looked like I had punched him. You what? Amber whispered. I told him the truth. That you've never held a job. That you have secret credit card debt. That you failed to pay your sorority dues. That you're failing classes. That you have no savings and no concept of financial responsibility. I told him about my birthday. I told him about every time you threw a tantrum, and our parents gave you whatever you wanted. I told him everything. You can't do that. Amber was crying now. That's my money. Grandpa left that for me. Grandpa left it for the person you could become if you grew up and learned responsibility. Right now, you're not that person. Maybe you will be someday. But that's not my problem anymore. My mother was shaking. Kendrick, please. That money could change Amber's life. It could pay off her debts, help her finish school. Don't take that away from her. I'm not taking anything. The trust has rules. She either meets them or she doesn't. If you want her to get her inheritance, maybe spend the next 6 months actually parenting her. Teach her about money. Make her get a job. Show her what responsibility looks like. That's your job as her parents. not mine. I stepped back into my apartment. Don't come here again. If you need to contact me, send an email. But don't expect me to solve your problems. I'm done being your safety net. I closed the door. I heard my mother sobbing in the hallway. I heard my father trying to calm her down. I heard Amber say something angry that I couldn't quite make out. Then I heard them walk away. Their footsteps fading down the hallway. The elevator ding. Silence. I sat on my couch and realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear or regret. From relief. I had said everything I needed to say. I had held my boundaries. I didn't give in to guilt or manipulation. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And it felt right. 6 weeks had passed since I walked out of my family's life. 6 weeks since I closed that door and decided I was done. During that time, I barely thought about them. I went to work, came home to my quiet apartment, spent time with Jake, went to the gym, cooked meals for myself. I was building a life that felt sustainable and peaceful. But while I was finding my footing, my family was in complete freefall. I only found out the extent of it because Jake ran into Carol at the grocery store, and she unloaded on him for 20 minutes in the produce section. Jake called me afterward, equal parts amused and horrified. Frank never found another job that paid what he used to make. He was 51 years old, had been with his previous company for 19 years, and the job market wasn't friendly to middle-aged middle managers. He applied to dozens of positions. A few called him in for interviews, but nothing materialized. He was either overqualified for entry-level roles or underqualified for senior positions. The severance package ran out. The savings they had, which wasn't much, dwindled fast. They made the decision to sell the house. They had no choice. The mortgage was $2,400 a month, and they couldn't cover it anymore. Carol increased her hours at the boutique to full-time, but she was only making $16 an hour. Frank took a job at a hardware store making $13 an hour, just to have something coming in. Together, they were bringing in maybe $4,000 a month after taxes. The mortgage alone ate up more than half of that. They listed the house in early October. The real estate agent told them the market was good. The neighborhood was desirable. They should be able to sell quickly. Amber was devastated. She begged them not to sell, said it would ruin her reputation, that she couldn't face her friends if they moved to a worse neighborhood. She actually said those words, a worse neighborhood. Like living in a middle-class area instead of an upper-middle-class one was some kind of tragedy. Carol and Frank realized, maybe for the first time, that they had raised a monster. Not because Amber was inherently bad, but because they had never taught her perspective or gratitude. They had given her everything and expected nothing in return. She had grown up believing she deserved luxury without effort. The fights at home escalated. Amber blamed them for everything. She blamed my father for losing his job. She blamed my mother for not making enough money. And she blamed me, most of all, for leaving them in this situation. As if I had orchestrated my father's layoff or controlled the housing market. One night, during a particularly vicious argument, Carol snapped. She told Amber that she was tired of her entitled attitude, tired of her constant demands, tired of pretending that Amber's social status mattered more than their survival as a family. She brought up my 21st birthday. She said, "Do you even realize what you did? You ruined your brother's milestone birthday over a dress you wore once. You didn't even apologize. You didn't even say happy birthday to him." Amber's response was to storm out and move in with her boyfriend, a guy named Brett that my parents had met exactly once. He lived in an apartment near campus with 2 roommates. Amber announced she was moving in with him, and they couldn't stop her because she was an adult. She lasted 2 weeks. Brett kicked her out. She was too high maintenance. She didn't contribute to rent or groceries. She expected him to pay for everything, drive her everywhere, cater to her schedule. His roommates complained that she was rude and messy. Brett finally told her it wasn't working out, and she needed to leave. Amber called me. It was a Friday night. I was making dinner. Just pasta and vegetables. Nothing fancy. My phone rang with her contact name. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Kendrick. Her voice was small, shaky. I need help. With what? Brett kicked me out. I don't have anywhere to go. Can I stay with you? Just for a little while. Just until I figure things out. I turned off the stove and sat down. No, please. I know I messed up. I know I was horrible to you. But I'm your sister. I don't have anyone else. You have Mom and Dad. They have a spare bedroom in their new place. I can't go back there. I said terrible things. I burned that bridge. That's not my problem, Amber. She started crying. Real ugly crying. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for your birthday. I'm sorry for everything. I know I was selfish. I know I took you for granted. Please, I don't have anywhere else to go. And for a moment, I felt it. That old familiar pull. The need to fix things, to help, to be the responsible one who makes sure everyone's okay. It would be so easy to say, yes, to let her stay on my couch for a few nights, to be the bigger person. But then I remembered every time she had dismissed me, every time she had taken what I offered without gratitude, every time she had chosen her own comfort over basic human decency. I remembered my birthday cake sitting on the counter with unlit candles. I remembered eating it alone. Amber, I hope you figure things out. I really do. But you need to learn to solve your own problems. That's part of growing up. So that's it? You're just going to abandon me? I'm not abandoning you. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference. You're a terrible brother. Maybe. But I'm a happier person. I hung up. She called back 3 times. I didn't answer. She sent a series of text messages, alternating between apologizing and attacking me. I turned off my phone and finished making dinner. Later, I found out she did go back to my parents. She showed up at their new townhouse at midnight, sobbing and humiliated. Carol and Frank took her in, but they also laid down rules. She needed to get a job. She needed to contribute to household expenses. She needed to start paying her own credit card bills. And she needed to enroll in a community college instead of the 4-year university because they couldn't afford the tuition anymore. Amber was furious, but she had no choice. She applied to a coffee shop near campus and got hired as a barista. She hated it. She complained constantly about having to wake up early, having to deal with rude customers, having to actually work for minimum wage. But she did it because she had no other option. Meanwhile, the house sold. They got a decent price, but after paying off the mortgage and the home equity line of credit they had secretly taken out years ago, they only netted about $40,000. They used it to pay off other debts, medical bills, credit cards. They moved into a 3-bedroom townhouse in a middle-class neighborhood. The rent was $1,400 a month. It was smaller, older, nothing fancy, but it was affordable. Carol and Frank's relationship actually improved once the financial pressure eased slightly. They weren't fighting as much. They started talking about rebuilding, about living simpler, about focusing on what actually mattered. They started going to counseling, working through their issues, trying to understand how they had gotten so lost in maintaining appearances that they forgot to actually be a family. They even started seeing Amber more clearly. Without me there to smooth everything over, to make excuses for her, to handle her messes, they had to face what she had become. And slowly, reluctantly, they started holding her accountable. Not perfectly, but better than before. The trust evaluation happened. Harold Peterson called me for my interview. I told him everything, honestly and thoroughly. I didn't exaggerate, but I didn't sugarcoat either. I told him about Amber's debt, her lack of employment history, her academic struggles, her entitled attitude. I also told him she was starting to make changes, getting a job, contributing to the household. I tried to be fair. 2 weeks later, Harold made his decision. Amber did not qualify for her trust distribution. She was deemed financially irresponsible and not ready to manage a large sum of money. However, the trust included a provision for reevaluation. She could apply again in 2 years if she demonstrated significant improvement. Employment history, savings, debt reduction, completed education. If she could show growth, she could still get the money. Carol called me when they got the news. I answered, breaking my own rule about not taking their calls. I was feeling generous that day. Kendrick, Amber didn't get the trust fund. I heard, this is devastating for her. For all of us. She can reapply in 2 years. If she's serious about changing, she'll qualify then. You could have helped her. You could have told Harold she was improving. I did tell him that. But I also told him the truth about her history. The trust has standards for a reason. Grandpa wanted us to earn it. There was a long silence. Then Carol said something that surprised me. You're right. I know you're right. We failed her. We failed you. We made you responsible for everything and gave her a pass on everything. And now you're thriving and she's struggling. And that's because of the choices we made as parents. I didn't know what to say to that. It was the first time either of my parents had actually acknowledged the dynamic. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself, she continued. I'm sorry we didn't do that for you. I'm sorry for your birthday. I'm sorry for all of it. Thank you for saying that. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? In your new life? I thought about it. My quiet apartment. My job that I actually enjoyed. My Friday night dinners with Jake. The basketball league I had joined. The absence of constant crisis and drama. Yeah, Mom, I'm really happy. Good. You deserve that. We hung up. I sat there for a while, processing. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was acknowledgement. And maybe that was enough for now. 4 months had passed since I left. It was late February now. The winter had been mild, and spring was starting to peek through. I had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable and peaceful. Work had gone exceptionally well. In January, I got promoted to senior accountant. It came with a $15,000 raise and more responsibility. My boss told me I was one of the most reliable people on the team, that my attention to detail and organizational skills were exactly what they needed in a senior role. I accepted gratefully, feeling proud of something I had earned entirely on my own merit. I had started dating someone. Her name was Sarah. She was a 3rd-grade teacher at an elementary school across town. I met her through Jake. Actually, she was the younger sister of Jake's girlfriend, and we all went to a dinner party together. Sarah was kind and funny, with this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard in the best way. We had been on 4 dates. Nothing serious yet, but there was potential. She made me laugh. She asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. She had her own life, her own interests, her own friends. She wasn't looking for someone to fix her problems, just someone to share experiences with. I had joined a recreational basketball league at the community center. Wednesday nights, a bunch of guys in their 20s and 30s played pickup games. It was competitive but friendly, and I was getting back into shape. I hadn't played basketball since high school, and I forgot how much I enjoyed it. The physical exhaustion, the teamwork, the simple joy of making a good play. I made new friends through the league. Guys who knew nothing about my family situation, who only knew me as Kendrick the accountant who could hit 3-pointers consistently. We sometimes grabbed beers after games. We talked about sports, work, movies, normal stuff. It was refreshing. My apartment had become my sanctuary. I decorated it slowly, buying furniture piece by piece as I saved up. A comfortable couch, a decent television, plants on the windowsill that I actually remembered to water. I learned to cook properly, Not just the basic stuff I made for my family, but actual recipes. Stir fries, roasted chicken, homemade bread. I enjoyed the process, the creativity, the satisfaction of making something good. I was in therapy. I found a counselor named Dr. Marcus Hammond, who specialized in family dynamics and childhood emotional neglect. We met every other week. At first, I thought I didn't need it, that I was fine, that I had already solved my problems by leaving. But Dr. Hammond helped me see the deeper patterns. The scapegoat role I had played my entire childhood. The way I learned to make myself small and useful to earn affection. The guilt I still carried about prioritizing myself. He helped me understand that removing myself wasn't abandonment. It was self-preservation. That I had every right to set boundaries, to build a life separate from my family's dysfunction. That I didn't owe them my happiness or my peace just because they were related to me by blood. Some days I still felt guilty. Some days I wondered if I should reach out, if I should check in, if I should offer help. But then I remembered how I felt in that house. Invisible, taken for granted, exhausted. And I remembered how I feel now. Visible, valued, rested. And the choice became clear. My family situation slowly stabilized. Frank's hardware store job was humble, but consistent. He actually seemed happier there, less stressed than he had been in corporate middle management. Carol went full-time at the boutique and discovered she had a talent for visual merchandising. Her boss started giving her more responsibility, letting her design window displays and organize inventory. They were making less money than before, but they were also spending less, living within their means for the first time in decades. The townhouse suited them. It was smaller, sure, but that meant less to clean, less to maintain, lower utilities. They couldn't keep up with the neighbors anymore because the neighbors were regular people with regular lives. The pressure to perform wealth they didn't have was gone. Amber was the slowest to adapt, but even she was changing. She kept the barista job for 3 months. Hated every minute of it, but stuck with it because she needed the money. Then she found a job at a dental office doing reception work. It paid a little better and had normal hours. She was still in community college, taking general education classes, trying to figure out what she actually wanted to do with her life, now that the influencer dream had died. She paid off one of her credit cards entirely. It was only $800, but it was progress. She started a small savings account, $20 a week, sometimes more if she picked up extra shifts. She was learning, slowly and painfully, what it meant to support herself. My parents attended family counseling with Amber, working through their issues without me. I heard about it secondhand through a message my mother sent. She didn't ask me to join. She just updated me, letting me know they were trying to do better. I appreciated that. The lack of pressure, the lack of expectation that I would come back and fix everything. As my 22nd birthday approached, I felt completely different than I had the year before. I made plans with Jake and Sarah and a few guys from the basketball league. We were going to a nice steakhouse downtown, then to a bar with live music. Nothing fancy, just good food and good company. The morning of my birthday, March 17th, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. I made coffee, sat on my couch, and just enjoyed the quiet. My phone buzzed with birthday messages. Jake sent a ridiculous gif. Sarah sent a sweet text saying she was excited for tonight. A few coworkers from the office sent messages in our group chat. Then there was a knock on my door. It was 8 in the morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach tightened. My parents and Amber were standing there. I took a breath and opened the door. I didn't let the anxiety show on my face, just stayed neutral. Morning. My father spoke first. Kendrick, we wanted to wish you happy birthday. In person. If that's okay. I stepped aside, and let them in. They didn't come bearing expectations this time. They just stood in my small living room, looking uncomfortable, but sincere. "We won't stay long," my mother said. "We know you probably have plans. We just wanted to give you this." She handed me a card, a simple blue envelope with my name written on it in her handwriting. Inside was a birthday card, the kind you buy at a drugstore. But there was also a check, $10,000, made out to me. I looked up, confused. "What is this?" My father cleared his throat. "We did some calculating. Over the last 3 years, you paid approximately $12,000 in household bills and expenses for us. That doesn't count all the other things you did, the labor, the time, the care. But we wanted to pay back at least some of what you contributed. It's not everything, but it's a start. We don't expect you to forgive us. We don't expect anything. We just wanted you to have it." I didn't know what to say. $10,000 was a significant amount for them right now, given their financial situation. It meant they had been saving, sacrificing, prioritizing this. Amber stepped forward. She looked different. Tired, maybe, but also more real somehow. Less polished. "I wrote you a letter," she said quietly. "You don't have to read it now, or ever, really. But I wanted you to have it." She handed me a folded piece of notebook paper. I took it but didn't open it. "We should go," my mother said. "We just wanted to see you, to tell you we're proud of you. You're doing really well, and we're happy for you." They turned to leave. I stood there holding the card and the letter, feeling a dozen different emotions at once. "Wait," I said. They stopped. "Thank you for coming, for this. I appreciate it." My mother smiled, her eyes wet. "Happy birthday, Kendrick." They left. The door closed behind them. I stood in my living room for a long moment, then sat down and opened Amber's letter. It was 2 pages, handwritten, messy in places like she had been crying while writing it. She apologized for everything, for my birthday, for all the time she dismissed me, for being spoiled and cruel and completely self-absorbed. She said she didn't realize how much I did for the family until I was gone and everything fell apart. She said she was ashamed of who she had been and was trying to become someone better. She didn't ask for anything, didn't ask me to forgive her or come back or help her. Just said she hoped someday I might want a relationship with her again. But she understood if I didn't. I folded the letter and set it on the coffee table. I looked at the check, $10,000. I didn't need it, not really. My savings were healthy. My job paid well. I was financially stable. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the gesture, the acknowledgement, the effort. I didn't cash the check that day. I put it in a drawer. Maybe I would cash it later. Maybe I wouldn't. Either way, it represented something important. An admission. An apology. A step towards something resembling accountability. I sent a text to my parents. Just one line. "Thank you for coming. I'm not ready to have you back in my life regularly, but maybe someday. I appreciate the effort." I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. That was fine. The message was sent and received. That was enough. That evening, I went to dinner with my friends. The steakhouse was loud and crowded, full of people celebrating life. Sarah sat next to me, her hand finding mine under the table. Jake made a toast that was equal parts heartfelt and ridiculous, making everyone laugh. The guys from basketball gave me a hard time about turning 22, like I was suddenly ancient. When the waiter brought out a slice of chocolate cake with a candle in it, everyone sang happy birthday. Badly, off-key, enthusiastic. I blew out the candle and made a wish, the same wish I made every year now, that I would continue to prioritize my own peace, that I would keep building a life that felt authentic and joyful, that I would never again set myself on fire to keep others warm. After dinner, we went to the bar with live music. A local band played classic rock covers, and we drank beer and talked and laughed. At one point, I stepped outside to get some air. The night was cool but not cold, and the stars were visible despite the city lights. I thought about where I was a year ago, sitting alone in my childhood home, eating birthday cake by myself, making plans to leave. I thought about how scared I had been, how guilty I felt, how much I worried that I was being selfish. Now I knew the truth. Leaving wasn't selfish. It was necessary. My family needed to face the consequences of their choices. They needed to learn to function without using me as a crutch, and I needed to learn that I was worth more than what I could provide for others. My absence forced them to change, forced them to confront their dysfunction, their enabling, their priorities. Maybe they would become better people because of it. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my responsibility to manage their growth. I had my own life to build. I learned something profound in those 4 months. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You can't sacrifice your own well-being indefinitely for people who don't appreciate it. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. People won't change until they face real consequences. My family didn't realize what they had until it was gone. That's not my fault. That's theirs. And while I felt sympathy for their struggles, I didn't feel responsible for fixing them. I was building a life based on my own worth, not their need. Surrounded by people who actually showed up for me, who valued my presence, who treated me like I mattered. This was what family should feel like. This was what I deserved. As I stood there under the stars, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Where'd you go?" "Come back inside. They're about to play your favorite song." I smiled and headed back in. Back to the warmth, the music, the laughter. Back to people who chose to be there. Back to a life I built for myself. This time, I didn't have to light the candles alone. Have you ever had to set a boundary with family that felt impossible at the time? Have you walked away from a relationship because staying was costing you too much? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming hardship and finding your own path. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next story.